Spring training is here. Remarkably, Padres pitchers and catchers reporting on Wednesday. Our Padres insider Kevin Acee back with us on San Diego Sports 760. Thrilled to have him throughout the course of this upcoming 2025 season. Kevin will be with us a couple of times a week, if not 3 times a week, beginning with spring training kicking off this week. So, Kevin, first of all, we appreciate you hopping on. We're looking forward to having you. What's your schedule like? Like, when are you in Peoria, or when do you get to Peoria to start this journey with the Padres?
I'm in Peoria.
Okay.
Got a few people to see, and get ready, kind of ease into it.
I do, and it's here's the thing. Obviously, you've written about it. Slow off season, I think, is an understatement. Obviously, a lot of off-field particulars with ownership. But I want to start with some of these baseball moves that have come to fruition apparently over the last 24, 48 hours. We'll see once they announce Jason Hayward. But Connor, Joe, Jason Hayward, maybe it's a platoon and left. What was your reaction to that as the path that the Padres took to potentially address left field?
In the end, about what you could expect when you get to this point, though there was some talk about them shooting a little bit higher, but I mean, couple $1 million guaranteed money, and that's about what you expect. I mean, this is a team that essentially deferred almost $6 million of Michael King and Elias Diaz's money. There's a cash crunch to a certain extent, and they want to keep some availability for the potential of injuries, for getting into spring training and seeing what maybe some more needs are, starting pitcher. So about what you could expect. And if you want to go into what can we expect now from these two guys or whoever does end up being your left fielder, I mean, it's not it's almost certainly not what you had last year. That said, there's room for improvement by some of the guys that are making big bucks on this team, and maybe you don't, they're going to have to step up and be better than they were last year. And I think we all know who we might be talking about. And then maybe you don't need an all-star in left field.
So with the moves that they still are looking to make, Kevin, how do they go about this? Do you expect trades? You've said that the money's tight. We've all seen that. We know that. So making the necessary moves that AJ Preller wants to make here until the start of the season, how do you expect them to make those?
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's a trade. They say they don't have to, or at least some people. When I always like to have a little refresher here when we talk about the Padres. Say, there's different people in the organization. There's the conversations that are going on there. There's this person or this group or whatever wants this, and this one says this, and they're constantly seeing where's revenue going to be, what can we fit in, what are we willing to do, what can we do. But at this point, in order to add, it appears that you need to subtract. So yes, how do this whole offseason's been like that? Like having, these conversations, if that works out, then maybe we could do this. If that works out, maybe they could do this. And at this point, nothing that they feel makes their team better, does that. Trading away, say, like Jake Cronenworth and getting, a decent return from my understanding, but they didn't feel makes them better than what they have with Jake Cronenworth. Trading Dylan Cease. Well, what they get, they don't believe at this point makes them better. And, obviously taking the money off the books is a big deal, but doesn't make them better. And having Dylan Cease and Michael King atop their rotation, that's what they've decided at this point that they're going to go forward with. So there's a lot to be done, but the basic answer to your question, yes, it looks like there needs to be some sort of subtraction at some level, Robert Suarez, something like that, to be able to maybe add a starting pitcher and another bat, because, sorry to get ahead of myself here, but the bench is pretty weak right now too.
Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. And again, opening day is still weeks away. Spring training will begin later this week in Peoria. And as you know, Kevin, because you've covered them, typically when you start spring training, you would hear previously during Peter Seidler's regime from Peter directly. Last year it was Eric Etzenda. You've reported on John Seidler, although he hasn't officially been named chairman through Major League Baseball. So when spring training starts, who will we publicly hear from the organization?
Maybe the two Erics again. is what I'm thinking. I do not know for sure. I would think it would at least be one of them. And if it is only one of them, I would think it would be Eric Grupner. Eric Katsenda is certainly not interested in being out front, but I wouldn't be surprised that he does that you get the two Erics again. Or maybe they put it off and they say, hey, once John Seidler does become trustee, all the legal stuff is done, then John Seidler will speak in the middle of spring training, maybe. I'm not sure. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I don't know what you guys have opined on that exactly. I can imagine what you have. We probably line up somewhat similarly. I think it'd be a great idea. Believe me, I'm the guy who flew across the country to the owners' meetings. So I believe John Seidler should speak. All that said, like, it's hard to argue when you're in the middle of litigation and you have a whole bunch of he said, she said stuff that it's not a good idea to wait until after he becomes officially the control person. It's just hard for us to argue with that, as much as I believe it would be a really good PR move. And I often think public relations or saying something just to say something is totally overrated. But in this case, I think it'd be really good for John Seidler to speak.
Well, it's nice that you found a picture of him, Kevin, especially in a Padres jersey. That was nice. That was a good little PR first impression-ish move for John to be seen at least in a Padres jersey.
What do you know? He was at a Padres game and rooting, presumably, since he and I believe both of them, he and his wife were wearing Padres gear, rooting for the Padres. What do you know? There he was.
Wow, yeah, what a concept.
As has been said several times,
right.
But there was no picture, so it didn't exist for some.
Well, people they need to see it before they believe it. And
there's no yeah, exactly. And seeing is believing now in the age of AI.
Exactly.
I said sarcastically.
Right. Yeah, that was an AI picture, Kevin. Yeah, I was like, what?
As I was halfway through, I'm like, oh, someone's gonna think that's what I'm saying.
Exactly. What is Kevin Acee's number one topic on the field? I think off the field, we can all agree it's if John and when John speaks and what he says or what the ownership says during spring training. But on the field, Kevin, going into spring training, what's your number one topic that you're going to be, tracking down every day, at least in the start of spring training?
Left field, Xander Bogaerts, back of the rotation. I'm having a hard time right now. I think that's a neck and neck, right? I just do. Because again, Xander Bogaerts could have his middling season from his Boston years, and it would be like the Padres gained an all-star. And because he hasn't been that guy for him. All right. He could play a full season healthy and be like a 4-5 WAR guy. And it would be like, wow. That would be quite the improvement, and I think makes up a little bit. Jake Cronenworth could improve on last year as he improved on the year before, and be back to say 2021 Jake Cronenworth. And oh my gosh, well, that makes a huge difference as well. Fernando Tatis Jr. continues his ascension. I think there's a really good core there, or the potential for a really good 5-man core, let's say. And then it's like, well, left field diminishes to me. So to me, I can't get around Xander Bogaerts. And then I think that as long as they find a way that Yu Darvish stays fresh, right, about to be 39 years old by the end of the season, there's a guy who's like absolute stud. Left a real nice impression after getting a nice rest. His final 4 regular season starts and his 2 starts at Dodger Stadium in the division series, phenomenal, really. I think him after King and Cease, I just think that's great. But hey, Matt Waldron, does he believe in the knuckleball finally? Randy Vasquez, is there somebody else? So back of the rotation. But you want one answer from me? It's Xander.
Yeah, it's a huge year, obviously. I mean, they gave him so much money, and is he going to is he going to produce like he did when he was in Boston or not? Now in his 3rd year in a Padres uniform. Kevin Acee is with us for Padres Insider. Spring training starts this week. 2 wrongs doesn't necessarily make a right, obviously. There was a lot of criticism going to the lawsuit for a moment when Sheil Seidler said, hey, they might move the team. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, right? But that got a lot of press. And then there was the reaction from ownership or from the Seidler Trust that said, well, you know what? Shields' lawsuit got in the way of our quest for Roki Sasaki. Is there any validity to that statement that the lawsuit or the timing of it hampered their ability to land Roki?
I don't think it helped. I just think there's too much smoke for there not to be fire, and I am not necessarily accusing anyone of any impropriety, but like for over a year, people have been saying he was going to LA. Players came away from it believing he was going to LA. A number of executives around the league came away believing he was always going to LA. They had no choice but to go through it and try to get him. Maybe they were wrong and he was going to go to San Diego or Toronto or wherever. But, and that's just a little too much smoke for me, but I don't see how it helped at all. If, let's say, we can't be inside of Roki Sasaki's mind,
sure.
and gosh, LA just lines up real nice for him. We can make all the arguments. So did San Diego, or so would Toronto. Though Toronto doesn't seem to work for anyone. But you can make the argument for sure San Diego did. But LA, woo, there's a lot there, man. And we can't be in his mind, but let's just say that he was like, all right, well, let me see about San Diego. Gosh, what's going on there? What's their long-term future? How much are they going to spend in 3 years when I want my big contract, and, that sort of thing. I just don't, it didn't help, but I really do believe this guy was going to the Dodgers.
And if you believe what Manny said, and Manny thought that, his mind was already made up when he came here to San Diego.
Which, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean because then Joe sort of backed up Manny with a little more thoughtful response and a little more like, hey, maybe it just seemed that way. But Joe and Manny basically said the same thing, which doesn't necessarily preclude, that a month earlier, Roki Sasaki hadn't been turned off by the lawsuit or something like that. We don't know. We just don't know. He seems to be a very interesting young dude.
Yeah, very interesting in that. The first time that Manny has an at-bat against Roki will be definitely must-watch television. Kevin, final one for me. So, the moves that they have made this offseason haven't been really, I guess, inspiring to the fan base. But, where do you put this as far as plan A, plan B, plan C? You mentioned that there were some things that they were trying to do that they couldn't get accomplished. Where would you put their offseason right now as far as this was plan A, B, C, or D?
If I'm going 30,000 foot and go back and read what I wrote in end of October, I believe, this is very similar to how you thought it might go. Maybe I should have been more specific, like, hey, don't expect a lot of activity, but I can't say. I mean, he's got subsets of plans. So is this plan C4? I just don't know. But I hope that gives you an idea of like what they maybe tried to do. And then, but ultimately also this wasn't going to be a huge off season. 2024 needed to have cuts in the payroll, and it did. This year was just going to go up because of the players they have on the roster, and there's just only so much room there. I mean, there is. Could the Seidler Trust? I don't think they could at this point. But could all the owners do another capital call and sign a $12 million pitcher? I suppose they could, but it's not like these people their dividends have not been paid to these owners in a long time. There just isn't the money there for them without them taking out more loans, which we know how that worked out in 23, or doing another capital call. We know how that worked out. This is just about where they were going to be. Now, had they been able to trade Luis Ariz, maybe something, I guarantee you something different happens. Had they been able to really get a return for Dylan Cease, something would have happened. So those things were talked about and they didn't happen. And so here we are.
I guess what I'm trying to get is like, it seems like what's happened this offseason hasn't gone according to the exact plan that they were looking for. Because Roki Sasaki, to me, like that's plan A, right? Sure. And potentially re-signing Jurickson Profar at a number that fits, like that's definitely
what number fit though. I really,
I get it.
Never gave the impression Jurickson Profar was coming back.
Right.
I love the man. I mean, I will miss him on a personally professional level, right?
Yeah.
Like this man was fun to cover, and he helped me cover this team. He's phenomenal. I didn't want to close that door, but Jurickson Profar wasn't coming back at $14 million a year.
No doubt about it. Kevin, yeah, I mean,
you're right. Oh, you're right. It didn't go, but again, Roki Sasaki, plan A, okay, fine. But he was also, plan A had other parts to it too.
Right.
But yeah, it's been there's no way around this. Bottom line, disappointing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, to this point, we'll see. I mean, again, everything's going to be determined on what happens on field. But yeah, from an offseason perspective, I think for a lot of Padres fans, it has been. Kevin, we appreciate it. We're excited to have you back. We'll do it again when spring training kicks off later this week. And thanks for hopping on.
Can't wait. You guys are going to be so sick of me.
We're not.
We're changing the name of the show.
It's just the Kevin Show.
It's the Kevin Show.
Come on whenever you want. Thanks, Kevin.
It's going to be awesome. See ya.
Enjoy
wait.
Peoria. Yeah. All right, Kevin Acee, our Padres insider. He'll be back with us Wednesday. He'll be with us 3 times a week from now until the end of the Padres season. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as often as possible on Jon and Jim. On the